I know at this time of the year, fall camp is always a grind, so there's always, a lot of anticipation, a lot of energy and enthusiasm to, play the first game. And I think the focus for us needs to be on playing the best, setting a standard for, how we want to play, how we want to do things, how we want to finish plays, how we want to execute. What is the identity of this team, going to be? I think there's lessons learned from a year ago when we didn't prepare right. We didn't practice the way, I think we need to practice to prepare. We didn't always play really well. So to be a more consistent team in terms of our ability to prepare and execute, I think is going to be critical for, how we play not only in the opener, but how we progress throughout the season. Utah State, Blake Anderson has done a really good job there. This team can play, really in any conference and do well. They ended up a top 25 team a year ago. They won 11 games, beat, a couple Pac-12 teams, beat Oregon State in the bowl game. And they've got like 12 starters back, quarterbacks back, who's a really good player. They were one of the most effective passing teams in the country a year ago. These guys are very aggressive on defense. They create a lot of negative plays. They get a lot of turnovers. They've got their specialist back. So they had a game. Obviously, that they beat Connecticut last week, 31-20, and got off to a little bit of a slow start, but then played really well, as the game progressed. So, this is really kind of about us and how we prepare to play and what we need to do against a really good opponent. So that's going to be the emphasis, all week long for us.
Start up front with Chase.
You mentioned some concerns about depth in the last week or so. At what position would you say you're most comfortable depth-wise?
I don't know. I mean, look, we're just trying to get as many guys to play winning football as, we possibly can. So, there's a lot of competition on our team right now, which I think, really helps you develop the kind of depth that you need on the team because guys are out there every day, working hard. I think, one of the things we try to emphasize to our players is whether you're going to start or be a backup, you got to prepare yourself to be ready to go when you get your opportunity. A lot of guys, they kind of slack off a little bit when they don't think they're going to play or they're not going to start or whatever their role might be. And then when they do get to play and they do get to be called on, they're not ready to go. So we're trying to emphasize that so that we get more players on the team who can play winning football for us. And, we're going to continue to do that, at every position.
On this side with Aaron.
What does it say about your experienced depth at running back and how well you've recruited that position that you have a back the caliber of Jace McClellan behind Jameer?
Yeah, well, I think, we feel good about the running back position. There's experience there, even though two out of the first three guys or two out of the first four guys, however you want to couch it, are coming off injuries. They don't seem to be having any issues or problems and have had really good fall camps. Jameer has, been a really positive addition to the offense in terms of what he gives us. So I think we have 5 guys there that can play winning football, and we're going to continue to try to develop all those guys. Obviously, based on what happened last year, this is a position where it's good to have a lot of depth.
And cornerbacks, see there are oars between two of the starters. Where Terrion Arnold, what has he done this preseason to impress you?
Well, he's played with a lot of consistency. He's got a lot more confidence now. I think he's a lot more comfortable with what he's supposed to do, how he's supposed to do it, why he's supposed to do it that way. And he's played, really well all fall camp. And I'm really pleased with the progress that he's made. And consistency and performance at any position is really important, but especially at the cornerback position where you really got to focus because there's going to be 5 or 6 plays in a game that you have to make, but those 5 or 6 plays are going to be critical plays in the game. Probably end up either being big plays or, incompletion. So that consistency in performance is really, really important at that position, because you got to be able to stay focused and stay on your game every play, even though you may only get challenged, 5, 6 plays in the game. So, and we'll see who can do that the best.
Back to the right, Charlie.
Kind of a two-parter on the tight ends. Just, do you have an update on Cam Latu and his progress? And then with him being out this preseason, have you seen some of those younger guys at tight end progress?
Yeah, Cam's going to start practicing today, see how he progresses and see how he does. I don't think anybody can, make a prediction about that right now. He was on the, treadmill and all that stuff last week. Never had an issue, never had a problem. So, the next thing he does is start, dry land, working, doing individual, seeing what he can do in practice. And, it's kind of day to day with him. But I think the good news is because we have 3 young players at that position, they have gotten a ton of reps and made significant progress because of the ton of reps that they've got in his absence. So, Robbie Oates has done a really good job at the position, but all 3 young guys have made significant progress, and they'll probably, have some role in this game.
Stay up front here with Nick.
Brian Robinson Jr. Had to go to the hospital yesterday after suffering some non-life-threatening injuries. Have you had a chance to reach out to him, or kind of what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, well, we obviously our thoughts and prayers are out to B. Rob and his family, and I did reach out to him. I didn't get him, so we texted him. So, B. Rob is doing really, really well. I think he's doing well relative to the information that we have. Even to the point where they think he may be able to come back and play at some point in the season. So we're hopeful for that. We'll keep our fingers crossed, but we're just glad that this is not something that is, critical to his future or putting his life in jeopardy in the short term.
Far side with Steven.
You've talked about Ja'Cory Brooks' competitiveness before, but what makes him kind of have that feel for being on special teams returning kickoffs?
Well, he's going to probably be the off returner, but Ja'Cory is very competitive. Like his spirit, like his energy, like the way he works every day. And he's had a really good fall camp, and whatever role we've asked him to be in, whether it's special teams, being a starter receiver, he's always responded in a really positive way and done a good job. And he's continued to do that throughout fall camp, and I'd assume we'll continue to do it, all season long.
Rodak on the left.
So how much do you weigh the production that Trayshawn and Kobe Prentice had in the scrimmages when making a decision on who's going to play in the game?
Well, I think that's why we practice. I think that's why we have scrimmages. See who's going to be productive, who's going to be competitive, who can go out there and sustain, know what to do, play fast, make plays, have confidence in what they're doing. So I think it has a significant impact on, what their roles are going to be in a game.
Back to Carrie.
Hey, Coach. Happy week 1 to you. Just wanted to ask you touched on the competition that you see, and obviously there's competition with certain position battles that you are expecting in the preseason. But I want to know just how do you encourage that in these other position groups where you don't see that? Do you want to see the competition just kind of remain, and how do you actually encourage that within players throughout the season?
Well, no one's entitled to anything, on our team. So, the message to every player every day, regardless of what the competitive circumstance is at his position, is you're trying to create value for yourself. You're trying to be the best player that you can be. There shouldn't be any external factors that determine how you go about that. And if you're really a true competitor, you don't need somebody to be competing for your job, because you're competing with yourself to be the best version of yourself that you can be relative to whatever you choose to do in your life. So it just happens to be football that you're playing right now. So hopefully you're going out there every day and competing to play well. And in most cases, if I see guys that I don't think are doing that, we put somebody else in. That's the one way to get the message across, that you're not entitled to play unless you do things the way you're capable of doing them.
We'll go to the seat the left.
Yeah, Coach, you said Utah State, they played in one last week. What do you think the positives and negatives are to playing in week 0 and getting that game experience versus getting the extra rest like you guys did?
Well, I think it's always a good thing to play a game. You always find out where you are. They probably found out a lot of things about their team. You usually improve a lot from week 1 to week 2. So from that standpoint, it's probably an advantage to have had a game. But at the same time, sometimes when you have a game, things go well. Some things don't go well. Sometimes you get guys injured. I don't know what the status of their team is after that particular game in terms of how it might impact them and how they'll play in the next game. So I don't think anybody can really answer that question because it's probably up to each individual and each team in terms of how they approach what they do. But I fully expect this team to come here and, having played a game or not played a game, and look at this as a tremendous opportunity to sort of, say who they are as a team in terms of how they play. So I don't think their motivation is going to be anything but stellar in terms of how they come in and look at and approach, playing, us here in Tuscaloosa.
We got one more with Tony, unless we have a follow-up. That'll be it.
You spoke a few times about Jaheim Otis's progression throughout the preseason. Just what did he do ultimately to prove himself, to put himself in that split starting role? And then how does he also complement his game compared to DJ Dale?
Well, look, the first thing about being a good defensive lineman at whatever position you play is you need to be hard to block. So if I was going to say something simple without getting too technical, I would say he was hard to block. And if he can continue to not make mental errors and understand exactly what his role is up front, I think, he can make a significant contribution in playing. How you compare one player to another, I don't really think, they both play the same position. We have the same expectation for what they need to do at that position, and both guys are capable of doing it well. So I don't think comparing players is really a fair thing for me to try to do.
All right, Coach, that's all we got. Thank you.
All right, thank you.